The forest was unusually quiet that morning, the kind of silence that made every rustle and snap of a twig echo like thunder. Officer Mark moved carefully along the narrow dirt trail, his faithful K9 partner, Rex, padding steadily beside him. It was supposed to be just another routine patrol, checking for trespassers, keeping an eye on campers, and making sure nothing suspicious was happening in the woods. But something about that morning felt different, heavier, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Rex, a trained German shepherd with sharp instincts, suddenly stopped. His ears shot up, and his body stiffened like a coiled spring. Mark paused too, instantly alert. Years of working together had taught him to trust Rex's every signal. When Rex froze, something was wrong. The dog lowered his head, sniffing the ground intensely before letting out a deep growl that rose into sharp, urgent barks. Mark frowned. "What is it, boy?" he asked quietly, scanning the trees. But Rex wasn't looking into the distance. His focus was fixed on a moss-covered rock a few feet away. Without warning, Rex lunged forward, pulling hard against the leash. He began clawing furiously at the dirt around the rock, barking so loudly that birds scattered from the trees above. At first, Mark thought it was just a small animal, maybe a raccoon or squirrel. But the tone of Rex's bark wasn't playful or territorial. It was desperate. The kind of bark Mark had only heard when someone was in danger. He called out to two other officers nearby. "Something's wrong." "He's found something." The others approached, watching Rex dig with growing confusion. "It's probably nothing," one said dismissively. "Dogs get worked up over smells all the time." But Mark shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "He's alerting. He's never wrong about this." Rex kept pawing until his nails were bleeding, dirt flying in every direction. His chest heaved with effort, but he refused to stop. It was as if he knew something no one else could sense. Finally, Mark knelt beside him, his voice steady but tense. "All right, partner. We'll check." One of the officers fetched a shovel from the patrol truck and began digging where Rex had been scratching. The sound of metal cutting through damp soil filled the air. Rex barked louder, pacing anxiously, never taking his eyes off that spot. As they dug deeper, the earth grew looser, darker, and the moss-covered rock began to shift slightly. Mark could feel his pulse quickening. Something was buried there, something Rex was determined to reach. Then suddenly, the shovel hit something soft. The officer froze, his hands trembling. "That's not rock," he whispered. Mark knelt immediately, brushing away the dirt with his hands. Beneath the soil, a small bundle appeared, wrapped in torn, mud-stained fabric. For a moment, everything stopped. The forest fell silent, as if the world itself was waiting. And then it happened. A faint, fragile sound pierced the stillness. A tiny cry. Mark's heart nearly stopped. "Oh my God," he breathed. "It's a baby." He tore away the cloth, revealing a newborn, weak, gasping, and barely alive. The officers around him stood in stunned disbelief. Rex whined and pressed closer, his nose nudging the child gently, his tail lowering as if he understood the fragility of the life before him. The tiny baby's skin was pale, lips trembling as faint cries escaped. Mark's hands shook as he lifted her carefully, brushing the dirt away. "You're safe now," he whispered. "We've got you." The other officers sprang into action. One grabbed his radio, calling for an ambulance with a voice that cracked under the weight of emotion. "We found a baby alive but critical condition. Send medical help now." The team surrounded Mark and Rex, their faces pale, eyes wide with disbelief and awe. "How long has she been here?" one officer asked quietly, but no one had an answer. The thought of how close they came to walking past that rock made every man's chest tighten. Minutes later, the wail of sirens echoed faintly through the trees. The paramedics rushed in, their faces turning from confusion to shock as they saw what the officers had uncovered. They quickly wrapped the baby in a thermal blanket, checking her pulse and breathing. "She's weak," one medic said softly, "but she's alive." Relief flooded through the group. Even the toughest among them wiped away tears. Rex sat down beside Mark, panting, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion, but eyes fixed on the paramedics, refusing to look away. Mark knelt beside his partner and placed a trembling hand on his head. "You saved her, Rex," he said, his voice breaking. "No one else would have found her." Rex let out a quiet whine, leaning into his handler's touch, his tail thumping weakly against the ground. As the ambulance doors closed and the baby was carried to safety, Mark stood still, staring after it, overwhelmed by what had just happened. The forest was silent again, but it was a different kind of silence now, not eerie or empty, but sacred. Every man there knew they had witnessed something extraordinary, something that would stay with them forever. A miracle, uncovered by the loyalty and instinct of a dog who simply refused to give up. Mark looked down at Rex, pride shining through his tears. "You didn't just save a life today," he whispered. "You reminded us all what it means to care."